Today we're getting festive with a pop-up greeting card animation in After Effects. So let's jump right in and bring this card to life. I'm just going to call our main composition greetings card. I'm having it HD, so 1920 by 1080 and 5 seconds long. And then what we're going to do is create another composition, and we're going to call this card background. This would be the inside of our card, so when it opens up, the 2 pages either side. And we're going to have this the same size and length as our main composition, so click OK. I already have a background designed for my card, so what I'm going to do now is create another composition and call this left page, and our page width needs to be half that of our main card background, so 960 for me. OK. And then let's drag in our card background, and then I'm going to press Y on the keyboard to bring up our anchor point tool, or we can click up here, and then I'm going to click and drag our anchor point so it snaps onto the left. It's not snapping, so I'm just going to go up here and click the snap in checkbox, and then make sure it snaps to that left point of our left page. And then we can go to our position and bring this so the anchor point is right on the edge, so we can even just type in 0. And then back in our project panel, I'm going to click on our left page that we just created and duplicate, and then name that right page. Click OK and open that up, and then we can just move that along. We could try and do it by eye, but I just find that pressing Y, moving the anchor point to the right so it snaps, going to our position, and then we know it's in exactly the right place. So that should be 960, which is the width of our composition. So now we have our left page and our right page, all of which can be changed and altered in our main card background composition. So anything that happens in here will be affected in our left and right pages. So now let's go back to our main composition, which is our greetings card, and let's drag in our left page. And then again, let's press Y and snap our anchor point this time to the right here. And then let's scale this down to say 70, and then let's center this in our composition. So this anchor point, or the inside of this left page where the fold will happen, is bang in the center of our composition. So again, let's press P, and that should be 960. Then let's drag in our right page and just have that on top, match our scale, which was, what was it, 70. Press Y and snap the anchor point to the left. Press P to bring up our position, and then let's just change that to 960 as well. So we could have done that by eye, but just by making sure that both our X positions are 960, we know that they are bang in the center of our composition, and then when we rotate these, we know that they're rotating from the correct position. So what we can do now is make both our layers 3D layers, and let's just close those. And then our left page, which is the one we want to open, let's press R on our keyboard. And then the Y rotation, we want to, after about a second or so, we want to create a keyframe, which is where it's going to be open. And then let's bring our playhead back to the start. And then let's change our Y rotation so that it is closed, which would be minus 180. But just a bit of advice, as you just saw there, it then disappears. So if we keep that to minus 179 rather than 180, you'll never see the difference. It doesn't intersect. So now if I scroll between those 2 keyframes, our card opens. So when the card is closed, we obviously want a nice front page for our card here. We're going to duplicate our left page down here, and we're also going to duplicate it up here in our projects panel, and let's just call that front page. And then if you hold Alt or Option with this one up here and this one down here also selected, and just drag our front page while holding Alt or Option on top of our duplicated left page. And nothing would have happened because the design inside our front page is identical to our left page design. So let's open that up, and we can just delete our card background. Again, I've already got a design. You can create anything you want in here and come back as many times as you want. Or if you simply want to follow along, you can download my project file and grab these designs from there. So let's go back to our main greetings card, and you'll see straight away that it is backwards. And what we could do is shift it about, move our anchor point, and it's a lot of hassle. So what we could do, and what we will do in fact, is go to our effects and preset search bar, and search for transform, which is under distort, and bring this onto our front page, untick uniform scale, and then just the scale width, we want to make that -100 rather than 100. And then straight away, like magic, it's flipped around the correct way. And then while we're here on our front page, if we just select it down here and then press U so we can see the keyframes, let's just make sure we're at the very start or on top of one of our keyframes. And then let's just delete those keyframes because we want to then parent this to our left page. So then we only have one set of keyframes rather than two. So if we want to change this in the future, we don't have to do it twice. We only have this one set to worry about. You'll also notice that our two pages, our front page and our left page, are intersecting. So you can only see our front page. And to fix this, all we need to do is on our front page, press P so we can see our position. And then on this final number, the Z position, we just want to make this +1 or just 1. And that just brings it slightly up above the other. And then when we scrub through, we will see our front page at the start. Then as it opens, we will see the inside of our card. Before we add any pop-ups, we're just going to add a camera. So let's go to Layer, New Camera, to Node, Camera 1. Let's leave all that as it is. OK. And then I also like to add a null. So let's go to Layer, New Null. Where is it? There it is. And then let's just call that Camera Null. Let's just bring those both to the top. Then we're going to parent our camera to our camera null. You can use the properties within our camera, but I just prefer it with a null. I find I have more control over the rotation and position when using a null. Make that null 3D. And then we can, at the very start, go to the transform properties of our null, make a keyframe for position. And then I think it's the X rotation we want. Yep. So make a keyframe on the X rotation as well. And then we can just press U so we can just see those two keyframes. And if we press K on the keyboard, it will jump to our next keyframe as long as it's visible. And then let's just change the X rotation. So it's down like this. And then maybe move our position down slightly, just giving a bit of room above for our pop-ups. And if I just play that through, you will see our card opens as the camera pans down. So we have a nice view. We could even, if you wanted to, change the X position so the front of our card is nice and centered in our composition so we can see the front of the card. And then as it opens, it moves to the left so we can see the inside of the card. So now I'm going to highlight all three of our final keyframes. So that is the left page rotation and our camera null. Right click, let's do easy ease in, highlight all the first keyframes and easy ease out. And then I'm going to go to our graph editor here. Make sure you're in the edit speed graph. So click this button here, edit speed graph. Make sure you have all of the points selected at the start. Let's drag that across slightly, highlight all of our final keyframes, drag that in as well, and just see how that looks. That's not too bad. It happens quite quick. So I'm just going to go back to our timeline and move our final keyframes out slightly just to give it a bit more time. Yep, and that works quite nicely. Right, so let's move on to why you're all here, which is the pop-ups. So let's create a new composition. I'm going to call this pop up underscore and then whatever you want the pop-up to be. So I'm going to call this snowman because my first one is going to be a snowman. And then the width 500 and height 500 as well. And click OK. And in here, this is where you're going to create your pop-up or bring in any asset you have for your pop-up. So I'm just going to make a quick snowman. One thing you need to bear in mind is the bottom of this composition is the page. So you need to make sure that it is touching or even intersecting the bottom of the composition. And then let's go back to our greetings card and let's go to our project so we can see our pop-up snowman. Let's bring this in. And again, let's press Y on the keyboard and bring our anchor point so it snaps onto the bottom. And then we can make that layer 3D. And then let's drag it over to the left because I want this one on our left page. Press R on the keyboard and is it X? Yep, on the X rotation, let's just up that so it's standing up. This is quite big actually, so what I'm going to do is just press S. I'm just going to scale this down to let's say 70. Then I can again just position it a little bit left. Yeah, about there is fine. And then what we want to do is our parent and link. Let's click and drag to our left page. And now that we know our anchor point is at the very bottom and it's linked to our left page, we want to press P when our layer is selected and make sure that that third number is still at 0 so that it is attached to the left page. So now when I scroll through, it is attached to our left page. We can play that through. And there we go. So what we could do is match our keyframes and animate that popping up, as in we could keyframe our X rotation, but that's a lot of hassle. Again, if we want to move our or adjust our keyframes on the card opening, we don't want to have, say, 5 pop-ups and have to change every single set of keyframes. We want as little keyframes as possible and then all to be linked. And to do that, we just want to use an expression. And I will share this in either the description or the comments or both, so you will have access to this. We're just going to copy this, and then on the X rotation of our snowman pop-up, we're just going to hold Alt or Option and click the stopwatch and paste it in. What we need to be aware of here is that we need to make sure our left page is called left page, or you can change this ready pink text here to whatever you have called your left page. And then this final number is the rotation of the pop-up when the card is open. So I'll have it at 70 rather than 90, because if I had that at 90, for example, although it is 90 degree to the card, and that is how a pop-up would kind of work, I assume, but for our angle, that isn't quite right. You need it to sort of face the camera a bit more, so I've just dropped that down to 70. So depending on what your camera angle is, you may want to adjust this third number. And now, without any keyframes, when I just scrub backwards through, you'll see that as the card is closing or opening, that snowman pop-up will go back to 90 degrees or 0 degrees, sorry. So as it opens, that pop-up folds out like so. And we just have the one set of keyframes to worry about. So now we can select our pop-up snowman and duplicate. And if we press P on the keyboard to bring up the property values, and I would advise to use the values down here to sort of move them around rather than the arrows. And that's because the rotation isn't 90 degrees. When you move him backwards, he will move down as well as back, like a little peeping Tom peeking over the back of the card, which isn't what we want. And I do have some pop-ups I've already created. So we can highlight our duplicate snowman here and then hold Alt or Option and drag on top of that pop-up. And we can now just maybe adjust the scale slightly and then move him to the right and then maybe down slightly to around there. Let's play it through. Yeah, it's all working as it should. So now let's again duplicate our pop-up snowman and move him to the right page. And all we need to do, the expression will still work perfectly, but we do need to change our parent from the left page to the right page. So let's just click and drag onto that. And now it will work just as well, but on the other page. And again, I'm just going to alt replace that with a pop-up reindeer that I've already created. Maybe just move that left slightly and then down to around there. And there we go. That is how we can create some pop-ups. We will be adding a light source so we can have some shadows, and it'll sort of highlight our pop-ups even more and give it a lot more depth than we currently have. But for now, let's create the tree that you saw in the example in the middle. It works in exactly the same way as the others, but with some slight tweaks. So again, let's create a new composition. And let's call this pop-up tree. Okay. And then I'm going to grab the pen tool. Then I'm just going to draw the basic shape of half of a tree. So around that there, I'm going to make that white, obviously. Click OK. And now let's go back to our greetings card. Let's drag this pop-up tree into our composition. This time we want to press Y and we want to snap our anchor point to that right side and release. And then we can make that a 3D layer and then press P And then it should be 960. Yep. And then I was hoping actually that our tree trunk would meet our snow at the bottom. So what I am going to do is go back to our pop-up tree and just make our composition slightly bigger. Let's go twice as big even, so 1000. Okay. If we go back to our greetings card now, you'll see it's way too big, but it's always good to scale things down rather than scale them up so you keep all the resolution. So let's go with that. So that's at 60% scale. And let's again press R while we have our pop-up tree selected. And this time I think it's is it the Y? It is the Y rotation we want. So we're going to select our Y rotation, hold Alt or Option and click on a stopwatch. And let's paste in that same expression we used for our other pop-ups. What we want is a minus number for this particular pop-up. Click off, and there it is poking up. And then let's parent this to our left page. So what we're going to do is essentially duplicate this layer and change this final number to different increments so that it kind of creates a fan or a sort of like more 3D tree. This first one I'm going to make -20, and then when I duplicate I will add 20, so it'll be -40, duplicate again, -60, and so on until I've filled all the way around until what would be -160. So with that at -120, I'm just going to click on the layer and duplicate, and if I just hit U twice on the keyboard, it should bring up our expression. So we can go straight to the expression, change that to -40, click off, so I can duplicate again, press U twice, change the expression to -60, click it again, duplicate, -80, duplicate, change it to -100, duplicate, that'd be -120, duplicate, getting there now, that'd be -140, and it should be just one more, -160, and there we go. Now if I play this through, we have what is a lovely tree in the middle. You just can't see it because there's no shadows or light. So let's do that now and go up to Layer, New Light. And I want a point light, and we want to make sure that Cast Shadows is ticked. Click OK, and straight away you will see that we now have more depth within our tree especially. So what we're going to do is let's just go down here so we can have two views. It's not really the one we want, so let's go to the front view. Just scale back slightly and click on our light so we can see it. Let's just move it towards the front of our pop-up. So that's hitting the front of our snowman and reindeer. So round about here, move it to the left so it's more centered. We can change this later, so actually let's just close that back to our one view. As nice as it looks, our pop-ups aren't actually reacting with that light as we want them to. So let's start with our pop-up snowman and open this up, go to material options. We want it to accept shadows, yes, so that's on, but we also want it to cast shadows. So let's change that from off to on, and instantly you'll see a shadow here behind it on the left. I'm going to, under accept lights, change it from on to off. So now it's not affected by the light. And now we have those settings that we want, we can click on our material options and copy, and close that down. And now we can highlight every single pop-up and we can then paste. And they now have all the same properties as those first two. I'm also going to do it to our front page, left page, and right page. Actually, right page was already selected, so just front page and left page. So now nothing in our composition is affected by the light, and they are all casting and accepting shadows. So our shadows are quite harsh, and I think if we go to our light, we can drop this down, go to light options, and shadow diffusion, let's change that from 0 to, let's say 50, just so it's a bit more blurry. And then our darkness, we could probably bring down to maybe 25. And yeah, it's not looking too bad actually. So something else that I forgot to do when creating our tree, and it does help to add a lot more depth, is if we go back to our pop-up tree and click off, so we're creating a completely new shape layer, grab the pen tool, and let's just draw a zigzag roughly along the shape of our tree, similar to that. And then let's just click the fill and turn that off so it has no fill, and change our stroke to a different color so we can see it, and up the stroke. See about there, that's fine. See, you can see it's quite rough, but that works quite well. And then our blending mode, again, let's change this to silhouette alpha so that it is a cutout of our tree. And now if we go back to our greetings card, you'll see they all have a sort of slice taken out of them, and it really helps create some depth. And one of the final things we're missing is a table or a floor for this card to sit on and add extra shadows as it's opening. So let's create a new composition. And let's just call this, let's call it table. It does need to be quite big, so I'm going to go for 2500 by 2500. And I'm just going to make a new solid. Click OK. And I'm just going to add a ramp to this, gradient ramp. And I'm going to go for red. I'm just going to make that radial. Have it so it goes from the middle. Red to just another darker red. And then go back to our project. Go to our greetings card. And we can drag in our table. Let's bring it right to the bottom, not that it matters. Make it 3D. You will see that it is accepting lights. So let's go back to our material options. Cast shadows off. It doesn't need to cast them, it just needs to accept them. So make sure that's on. Accept lights off. Now if I play this through, there you go. Straight away you'll see that it is too far to the left. So I'm just going to bring that over. And let's just press K to jump to the end. And you'll see that we're also clipping it off here on the left. And rather than make my background or table composition bigger, I am just going to adjust our camera null and make sure it's filling our composition. So that's much better. So play that through now. And there we go. So it's now accepting shadows and it's looking quite nice. Thanks for watching. You can download the project file for free in the description below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching and happy holidays.